Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Ryan. Scott had asked me to talk a little bit about default routing of your 911 calls. And specifically, you can think, what in the heck is default routing? When a 911 call comes into it goes into the network, if I'm calling from a particular territory within a county, and it doesn't end up going back to the PSAP in your county, and it goes to someplace else, the someplace else is a default route, which we want to avoid default routing, at least understand what has happened, and so we can correct that issue. We had a situation in Barton County, Rice County, Ellsworth area where there's a telephone company that had a variety of landline services, and when people would call 911, it would end up in Reno County, and it should have gone to Barton County. So you think, what is the issue there? That's difficult to surmise, but fortunately, there was enough information given to us by the PSAP that we could take a look at the time it came in, the phone number on it, all the information, and play that game of Clue to see what had transpired. It even comes in with the right ESN that's destined for Reno County. So you think, what's wrong with that? Well, peeling back the onion further, well, the people lived in Barton County, so consequently, something is happening in the network that's incorrect. Looking at it closely, what is transpiring is when that call originated in the Barton County area, it goes through the network, it finds itself in the Wichita Tandem, and the Wichita Tandem is the legacy routing system. The Wichita Tandem would look, where do I send this call? And it doesn't have a way to look at the regular 911 database. And so the Wichita Tandem says, I'm going to default route to the county that I see in my table, and it sends it off to Reno, which is not correct routing, but it is for what we call default routing if the appropriate information isn't seen on the call. So then you think, why isn't the appropriate information seen on the call? Well, we found out that trunk groups from that particular telephone company merely had a setting that was in error. So once we found that out, we were able to get that telephone company to get the setting corrected so the call would come into the Wichita Tandem for the routing engine, reach off into the 911 database, and identify that it does go to the appropriate county, which is Barton, and send it. Now, the point is, though, on this, default routing, it's the way the machine is set up if you don't see the right alley information. But we want to fix those situations. That's a situation that if you guys encounter that in the field, take a look at the information, the alley screen, record it, print it in the back room. We'll talk about this in a little bit, create an alley discrepancy report so we can get in and figure it out. But one thing, if it happens to a single address, you hate it, and you really hate it if it's a major issue. But when you find one of those things, it could be that it's a systemic issue, and maybe all of the calls associated, or all the numbers associated with a given telephone company have a problem that we want to look at and resolve. And so be vigilant of those things. I think since we've gone onto this ESINet, we've identified problems that probably existed prior to ESINet, but it heightened people's awareness so they're studying these things up a lot more, thinking, is this a new problem? And thus they get the information to us and we get it resolved. But in many cases, it was a problem that existed prior to the ESINet, and so now we're cleaning things up that should have been cleaned up years ago. So point is, see an issue that's not right, study it up, record it, time, date, print the alley record on your system if you can. Another thing you can do is take a picture of the screen if you have access to your smart camera. Get that information pulled together, put it in an alley discrepancy report, send it in to us, we'll look at it, get it resolved. So, Scott, is there anything else you want me to talk on that?
I think that's good.
Lori, you going to talk about the discrepancy reports?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Leon come up too to help me out on this, because they do this more than me. Come on, Leon. So this is Sherry's presentation that Sherry put together, but we'll try and work through this. Hopefully I hit the right button. So we have alley discrepancy discrepancy reports, and basically what the alley discrepancy report's doing is just notifying the telephone company that there's a problem with the alley data, or that 911 call. So, to solve it, well, Leon, I wanted you to kind of say what your process is there in the PSAP with the Vesta, because you can do this on the Vesta.
Do I need a microphone?
Yes.
Yeah.
They want to know.
Where it starts, when you get the call that comes in, it's going to come in with no record found, and like Phil mentioned, that's actually where the problem is they don't have the information in the back end of the system. So your dispatchers have to generate the, what's it called?
Discrepancy.
The incorrect location report. So they click incorrect location, it's going to populate what turns out to be a 3-sheet form. It has the alley field, it has the phone number, and it's not going to have any other information in it. In order for you to get to this step, you've got to have the time and date that the call came in, and you've got to have the phone number. And really, that's all you need. If you have more information, it's preferable, like knowing who it's supposed to route to, because that's also what you're going to want to fill in. So then you go to the alley audit query. And this is where you're going to try to query the number that called 911, just to get it to pull up the call record. So you'll go to that alley TN, put in the number. You want to search the dates and times and hit the response all, and then you'll submit that. And you should get back all the times that number's called you. In some instances, it's only going to be 1 or 2, and in some instances, it's going to be half a dozen. One of the issues that we've had has actually come out of Ford County, and it's not their problem, it's a Cox problem. But there's a nursing home that's on a Cox telephone, and we're getting calls from them still weekly. So you can see a lot of hits on a phone number like that. Go ahead and go to the next one. Back on the last side, you want to check, I'm sorry, we just slide back. You want to check the one of the boxes. So for the record that you want to submit the report form, you're going to check the box and then create DR. And now, on to the next one. And then it'll populate the information in here, and thinking that's not the whole thing. Go to the next slide. Okay, yeah, if you can't find the call, you can enter the call information from scratch, again from creating the DR. Go ahead. And then you can also query them, but there's going to be the option to submit, and one of the options, and I'm sorry, I haven't seen this before I got voluntold to come up here. After you've got the information populated in, it's going to be an incorrect route, I believe, is what you're going to select, and then you submit that. Now, you have to have somebody who can access the 911 director, and that's probably going to be the person who handles your MSAG, I would guess. At least that's how it was with us. You're only going to get 2 tokens per agency, so if you don't already have one and you need one, that'll be something you've got to contact AT&T and talk to Marlene Lay, I believe it is, about. Anyhow, is that? I can read from the screen with the best of them, but that's the most amounts of it.
So just knowing when to submit it, if you don't have any alley information, you have a no record, you get it at your agency, it should have went through another agency. Address is different than what's on the record, it hasn't been updated.
It says as we get ready to transition to the EZNet, is this all stuff that will be trained on or provided information on? I mean, is this my one shot at knowing how to do
There's
this?
your training.
Actually, whoever's doing your MSAG maintenance now probably knows all of this.
Okay.
Because this is the same in the legacy world as well.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, GIS director now instead of 911 net, but that's the only, I mean, it's the name, it's the only difference. absolutely right, and there's some of those that can just be marked as exceptions in your data, and you don't have to solve that.
Yeah, Sherry doesn't like to do that.
Well, I suppose if there's enough of them that would take you out of the 99% compliance rating, then you couldn't do that.
But it's good you're aware of that you know that those exist out there and you can do something or recognize that it's there, so. And theoretically, no one will ever call from those numbers, but it does, when you bring, when everybody, one comes on the ESINet, we're looking at a 99% match rate between the ESINet and TN records, of course. And so if you had a bunch of those and it knocked you out of that, as Scott's indicating, we might have to force an address on them or something like that.
Yeah, and some of this stuff like Leon was talking about, you search that, you go in there and correct it. If you've already submitted it, it'll tell you that you've already submitted it, kind of sort of. And sometimes we have the mercy of the third-party vendor, Cox or Home Telephone Company or whoever, that fix that. And sometimes they're really slow in fixing it.
You are right. They help.
What was explained to me was that when you go ahead and you submit those, the discrepancy reports, that puts it in front of somebody, not a machine, not, a computer that's gonna be looking at it, but it puts it on a person's desk, and then they have to deal with it, which they may still be moving slow, but it's gonna be faster than if it wasn't brought up at all.
Yeah, I've seen some of them take 30 days or more just to get them changed.
Well, and Cox seems to have a problem with ported numbers. They port the number from another phone company to their system, but then they forget that they need to create an alley record for that number that they ported. We have had multiple PSAPs where none of their administrative lines would dial 911 because there was, well, with an alley record, because
Cox
there
Cox
wasn't.
is terrible.
Are you submitting the DRs on anything that's default routed to you?
Yes. Yeah, because I don't want those calls. Not that, we finally worked through a process. We've got everybody's administrative number on the southern host, and if we don't have a star code for it, then we're sending it to the admin number. It's kind of a pain in the butt for you guys because you need to see that there's no record found also. But if we transfer a 911 call to you and it's on your admin line, that's why. Because we got it default routed. But yeah, we don't want those calls because it's a time delay. It's a time delay to get that person help, and we've had a couple that were pretty high priority from the nursing home in South City. But until the phone company gets it straightened out, we continue to take them.
Leon, how many of those do you get a week, you think, default routes?
That's a good question.
10?
5 to 10. It depends. We had one from Barton County. What's the name of the company? H&B. They had a half a dozen in one day. They identified the problem, and I believe that Dana was instrumental in that. But they went and well, you guys talked to them, I think. They worked through all the customers once they identified what the issue was.
Yeah, and that's really a specific instance where you really want to get that worked out because that covered a lot of customers.
Yeah.
And what that one fixed all those customers, which is.
You know what, if you go back to the training question that Laura had, every single dispatcher has to know this because most of them are problem solvers and they just try to figure it out and take care of it. If they don't do the back end reporting of it or getting it to somebody who's gonna report it, it's just gonna be a repetitive issue until it is done. So it really does mean everybody has a piece in it.
And that is a very good point, because in addition to system defaulting, where the system can't figure out what PSAP it should go to, and so they send it to Reno County, there's also PSAP default routing. So if it can't determine your PSAP, the ESM that this applies to for your PSAP, but it can determine that it, based on the prefix, that it should be going to your PSAP, there is a default route path within the system that will send it to your PSAP, but you'll see that no record found when you get it that way. So this isn't something that just us Reno's going to see all of you can see this, so it's a great point. Your dispatchers need to know how to deal with it.
The Fort County problem too has been kind of interesting because in working a little bit with the nursing home, they've reported back that basically once the ice storm hit, so if you think back to when that ice storm was, and we lost a whole bunch of, Cox lost a whole bunch of fiber, and they rerouted down south back into Hutch and then back out to the nursing home, that's when that record got screwed up, and I don't know that they've really resolved it yet to this day.
And you're pretty much at the mercy of
You're just
phone
phone
provider,
provider,
because it's
so
their
they
record.
just kind of gave up, I guess, I don't know.
Whose responsibility is it though? The owner of the record or the PSAP?
It's the service provider who owns the number. It's their responsibility to get the alley record correct.
But they don't know it's wrong till you tell them.
Right.
So
So that's your
Fox doesn't-
responsibility, is to let them know it's wrong.
So Fox doesn't do anything about it, what's the next step after the record, 30 days or 25 days?
Probably a complaint to the KCC.
Actually, Sherry said she'll help with the Sherry Massey. She helped me on a couple of them.
Yes, she does have, seem to have pretty good function.
If she does.
Yeah. I'm not sure she broke the code on Cox yet, but with the other providers, I think she has.
She's got a very good contact list set up, and she understands the issues probably better than anybody in the entire state.
Lori mentioned something that's probably worth noting. When you have that incorrect location report on the Vesta screen, even though you hit submit, it doesn't go anywhere, it just goes to the printer. So somebody still has to physically deal with that. Somebody in your PSAP still has to deal with that. And that was, I think, it's a misconception that I have heard about, that people think when they hit submit, well, that's going to AT&T. It's not. It's going to your AT&T printer that was installed when your phone system was installed, and it's in your back room or somebody's office or wherever it is. So if that's not being checked, you may have a whole bunch of those already sitting on the printer to be dealt with. So.
And I've been to a few PSAPs where I'm like, hey, this is how you do this, and they're like, oh, that printer hasn't worked forever, and I'm like, why did you not call the resolution center? So please, if things aren't working, call the resolution center, get a ticket in, and let's get those printers working, so you can do those reports.
And that goes for anything on the system. No matter what it is, how small it is, create a trouble ticket so we get somebody out to fix it. Because if you don't do that, we never know that it's broke, and there's no way we can fix it if we don't know. So, and we want it to work right, so.
Including transfers. If transfers aren't working right, put in a ticket for you, 'cause they should be working right. And just don't think that, oh, maybe it'll get better. It probably won't. So
Exactly.
put the ticket in, they'll get somebody out to get it fixed. And in the ESINet world, you can't put in, like transferring to a different jurisdiction, you can't put in your own speed gun as a start code. So the AT&T techs have to be involved with that. So, and the transfers in the ESINet world, they go like that. They move quickly, it's fast, they just got to be set up right. Additionally, when the AT&T techs go out and do those, set the ESINet up, the jurisdictions are